All right, imagine you're an archaeologist and you've just discovered the exact location of what might be the most elaborate tomb ever built in human history. We're talking rivers of liquid mercury, booby traps straight out of an Indiana Jones movie, a replica of the entire universe on the ceiling, and enough treasure to make Jeff Bezos look like he shops at a thrift store. Oh, and you know where it is. You've mapped it. You've scanned it. You could literally start digging tomorrow. But here's the twist. You don't. You just leave it alone. Welcome to Mystique History, where today we're talking about the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, a burial complex so insane, so potentially dangerous, and so archaeologically precious that scientists have basically decided to just not open it, at least not yet. And trust me, the reasons why are way more fascinating than you'd think. So let's start with the man himself, because you can't understand the tomb without understanding the absolutely wild individual who built it. Qin Shi Huang wasn't just any emperor. This guy unified China for the first time in history, basically invented the concept of China as we know it, standardized everything from currency to the written language, built the early version of the Great Wall, and did all of this before he turned 40. He was ambitious in a way that makes Elon Musk look like someone with reasonable life goals, but here's where it gets interesting. He was also completely obsessed with immortality, like not in a I want to be remembered way, but in a I literally want to live forever and I will spend the entire treasury trying to make this happen way. He sent expeditions across the ocean to find magical islands where immortal beings supposedly lived. He consumed mercury pills because his advisors told him they'd make him immortal. Spoiler alert, they did not. In fact, they probably did the exact opposite, but we'll get to that. Now, Qin Shi Huang started building his tomb when he was like 13 years old. 13. Most of us at 13 were worried about acne and homework, and this kid was designing his eternal resting place, and he didn't mess around. Historical records say that over 700,000 workers spent nearly 4 decades building this thing. To put that in perspective, that's more people than currently live in Washington, D.C., all working on one construction project for basically an entire generation. What they built was essentially an underground palace city, a necropolis, spanning roughly 38 square miles. That's bigger than Manhattan. Bigger than Manhattan. This wasn't a tomb, it was an underground empire. Here's what we know from ancient Chinese historical texts, specifically the records of the grand historian written about a century after Qin Shi Huang passed away. The tomb supposedly has rivers and seas made of mercury that flow mechanically using some kind of ancient hydraulic system. The ceiling is decorated with pearls and gemstones arranged to represent the cosmos, the stars, the sun, and the moon. The floor is a map of the emperor's empire, with all the major rivers and geographical features. There are palaces filled with treasures, weapons, and basically everything the emperor thought he'd need in the afterlife. And oh yeah, the whole thing is supposedly rigged with automatic crossbow traps to take out anyone who tries to break in. Because apparently, in death as in life, Qin Shi Huang was not messing around. Now you might be thinking, okay, cool story, but how do we know any of this is real? Ancient texts exaggerate all the time, and you'd be right to be skeptical. Except, in 1974, some farmers digging a well about a mile from the tomb site accidentally discovered something that changed everything: the Terracotta Army. And suddenly, those exaggerated historical accounts didn't seem so crazy anymore. These farmers literally hit a clay head with their shovels and were probably like, guys, there's a statue down here, a very detailed statue of a soldier, and, oh no, there's more of them. What they'd found was a massive underground vault containing thousands of life-size terracotta warrior statues, each one unique, each one detailed down to the facial expressions and hairstyles. And these weren't just statues. They were arranged in military formation, with infantry, cavalry, archers, chariots, the whole deal. An entire army frozen in clay, guarding the emperor's tomb for over 2,000 years. The Terracotta Army is now one of the most famous archaeological discoveries in the world, and it's just the outer part of the tomb complex. It's like the front yard security system. The actual tomb, the underground palace where Qin Shi Huang himself is supposedly buried, is still sealed, still untouched, still waiting. And here's where things get really interesting, because modern technology has allowed us to peek inside without actually digging. Ground-penetrating radar, remote sensing, core samples from the soil. We've done it all. And guess what? The ancient texts weren't lying. Soil samples from around the tomb show mercury levels that are absolutely off the charts, way higher than normal background levels, which means there really might be rivers of mercury down there. The structure shows up on scans as a massive complex of chambers and corridors. Everything points to this being exactly as elaborate as the old stories claimed. So why not open it? Why not go full Indiana Jones and see what's inside? Well, here's reason number one, and it's pretty straightforward. Mercury is incredibly toxic. Like, really, really toxic. If those mercury rivers are real, and if they've been sealed underground for 2,200 years, opening the tomb could release massive amounts of mercury vapor into the atmosphere. Mercury vapor is nasty stuff. It damages your nervous system, your brain, your kidneys. Basically, it's the kind of thing you don't want to breathe. The workers who built the tomb probably knew this was dangerous, which is maybe why historical accounts say that once the tomb was finished, all the craftsmen who knew the layout were sealed inside. Dark, I know. But it means that if we crack this thing open without proper precautions, we could be looking at a serious environmental and health hazard. Imagine the headlines. Archaeologists open ancient tomb, accidentally poison entire province. Not a great look. Reason number two, technology, or rather the lack of it. Here's the thing about archaeology in the 21st century. We've learned some hard lessons from past mistakes. Back in the day, archaeologists would just dig stuff up, dust it off, and throw it in a museum. Sounds great, right? Except sometimes ancient artifacts are preserved because they've been sealed away from air, light, and moisture for thousands of years. The moment you expose them to modern atmosphere, they start degrading. Fast. Like you open a tomb and the painted walls that have stayed vibrant for millennia start fading within hours. Organic materials crumble to dust. It's heartbreaking. And we've seen this happen repeatedly. The colors on the terracotta warriors, they were originally painted in bright, vivid colors, but most of that paint flaked off within minutes of exposure to air. We've managed to save some of it on more recently excavated warriors using modern preservation techniques, but the damage to the earlier finds is done. Now imagine that problem, but with an entire palace complex full of artifacts we can't even imagine yet. The Chinese government and the archaeological community have basically said, look, we've got one shot at this. One. If we open it now and screw it up, that's it. Game over. We can't undo that mistake. And honestly, that's pretty wise. Technology is improving every year. Methods for preserving artifacts are getting better. Maybe in 20 years we'll have techniques that can stabilize mercury, preserve organic materials perfectly, and document everything in ways we can't even imagine right now. Why rush? The tomb has been sitting there for over 2 millennia. It can wait another few decades. Patience is not usually humanity's strong suit, but in this case, it might be the smartest play. But here's where the story gets even wilder, and this is one of those details that just makes you appreciate how extra Qin Shi Huang was. According to the historical records, the tomb isn't just booby-trapped with crossbows. Those are just the start. The ancient texts describe the entire complex as being designed to be completely self-sufficient and functional for eternity. The mercury rivers weren't just for show. They were supposedly mechanized to flow continuously, representing the great rivers of China. Think about that. Someone designed a hydraulic system over 2,200 years ago that might still be working. That's older than Jesus, older than the Roman Colosseum, older than almost anything you can name. And it might still be running down there in the dark, circulating toxic mercury through artificial rivers for literally no one to see. If that's not simultaneously the coolest and most pointless engineering achievement ever, I don't know what is. And the ceiling with the cosmos, that wasn't just decorative, it was a full star map with pearls representing stars and mechanical devices to simulate celestial movements. Qin Shi Huang literally built himself a planetarium tomb. The floor map of his empire probably included models of major cities, mountains, rivers, all carved and crafted in miniature. This wasn't a tomb. This was a theme park. This was Disneyland for the afterlife, and it was all for an audience of one, a guy who thought he was going to live forever but ended up passing away at 39, possibly from mercury poisoning from those immortality pills he was taking. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a jade ceremonial knife. Now, you might be wondering, has anyone ever tried to just sneak in? Like, has there been a heist attempt, a rogue archaeologist, anything? And the answer is, probably not successfully. The Chinese government guards this site heavily. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it's a matter of national pride, and they're not about to let some treasure hunter pull a Nicolas Cage and steal the Declaration of Independence, except it's the Emperor's tomb. Plus, remember those crossbow traps? Even if they're 2,200 years old, do you want to be the person who tests whether or not they still work? Ancient Chinese engineering was no joke. These were the people who invented gunpowder, the compass, and printing. A crossbow trigger mechanism that stays armed for 2 millennia is absolutely within their capabilities. It's like the world's most elaborate do not disturb sign, and it comes with consequences. There's also the cultural aspect to consider, and this is something that Western audiences sometimes overlook. In Chinese culture, disturbing a tomb, especially an imperial tomb, is a big deal. It's not just about archaeological preservation or scientific curiosity. There's a spiritual and cultural dimension to it. Ancestral reverence is deeply important in Chinese tradition, and Qin Shi Huang, despite being a controversial figure historically, is still seen as a foundational figure in Chinese history. Opening his tomb isn't just a matter of, let's see what's inside. It's a decision that carries weight culturally, ethically, and politically. The Chinese government has explicitly said they won't open it until they're absolutely certain they can do it right, and that's a stance that deserves respect. This isn't Indiana Jones. This isn't a race to grab the treasure. This is about honoring history while also preserving it for future generations. Let's talk about what we do know from the parts of the complex that have been excavated, because it's absolutely bonkers. The Terracotta Army alone consists of over 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots, 670 horses, and 150 cavalry horses. Each soldier is unique. Unique. No two faces are the same. They're all life-sized, averaging around 6 feet tall, and they were originally painted in bright colors and carrying real bronze weapons. The weapons, by the way, were still sharp when they were found. After 2,200 years underground, the chrome plating technique used on some of the weapons was so advanced that it wasn't reinvented in the West until the 1930s. These weren't decorative props. This was a functional army equipped with real weapons, ready for battle in the afterlife. And that's just what was guarding the approach to the tomb. Imagine what's actually inside. There are also pits containing bronze chariots, some of which are so detailed and complex that they have working parts, like suspension systems and articulated joints. There are pits with acrobat and musician figures, because apparently the emperor needed entertainment in the afterlife. There are pits with rare birds and animals, possibly representing a zoo or hunting grounds. Every new section they excavate reveals something mind-blowing, and they've only excavated a tiny fraction of the overall site. It's like every few years, archaeologists are like, hey, we found another pit, and this one has, oh wow, okay, this is new. The gift that keeps on giving, except the biggest gift is still wrapped and sitting under the tree, and everyone's agreed not to open it yet. Here's something that'll really bake your noodle, and this falls into the interesting piece of information category. The construction of Qin Shi Huang's tomb might have directly contributed to the fall of his dynasty. Remember those 700,000 workers? They weren't volunteers. This was forced labor conscripted from across the empire, working in brutal conditions for decades. The cost of this project, combined with other massive public works like the Great Wall, basically drained the empire's resources and created massive resentment among the population. Qin Shi Huang passed away in 210 BC. His dynasty lasted exactly 15 years total before collapsing. 15 years. All that work to create an eternal empire, and it barely outlasted its founder. The tomb, on the other hand, has lasted over 2,200 years and counting. So in a weird way, Qin Shi Huang did achieve immortality, just not the way he planned. He's immortal because his tomb is so ridiculously over the top that we're still talking about it in the 21st century. So where does that leave us? We've got this massive, elaborate, potentially dangerous, definitely priceless archaeological site, just sitting there sealed and waiting. We've got the technology to peek inside, but not to safely excavate it without risking damage. We've got historical accounts that sound like fantasy, but keep getting proven true every time we dig around the edges. We've got mercury rivers, cosmic ceilings, booby traps, and an emperor who wanted to rule forever from beyond the grave. And we've got archaeologists and scientists who are basically playing the longest game of delayed gratification in human history, saying not yet, not until we can do this perfectly. And honestly, I think that's beautiful. In a world where everything is instant, where we have same-day delivery and streaming everything and constant updates, there's something profound about a group of people saying, this is too important to rush. We'll wait. Our grandchildren will wait. Maybe our great-grandchildren will be the ones to finally open it, and they'll have tools and techniques we can't even imagine right now, and they'll do it right. It's patience on a generational scale. It's thinking about the long game in a way that our instant gratification culture has mostly forgotten how to do. And it's a reminder that some mysteries are worth preserving, at least for a little while longer. Because here's the thing, once you open it, that's it. The mystery is over. Whatever's inside will be cataloged, photographed, analyzed, and put in museums. And that's great for knowledge, but something will also be lost. Right now, Qin Shi Huang's tomb exists in a liminal space between legend and reality. We know it's there, we know it's real, but we don't know exactly what's inside. Our imaginations can run wild. Maybe it's exactly as the ancient texts describe. Maybe it's even more elaborate. Maybe there are surprises waiting that no historical account even mentioned. That sense of possibility, that mystery, has value too. Not saying we should never open it, but there's something to be said for letting it maintain its mystique a little longer. So there you have it, the tomb of China's first emperor, the most elaborate burial complex ever created, guarded by an army of terracotta warriors, allegedly filled with rivers of mercury and rigged with ancient death traps, and completely off limits to archaeologists who desperately want to see inside but have wisely decided to wait for better technology. It's a story about ambition, about mortality, about the lengths one man went to in pursuit of immortality, and about the patience required to preserve history properly. If this kind of deep dive into archaeology's greatest mysteries is what you're here for, you're definitely in the right place at Mystique History. Smash that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what you think they'll find when they finally do open it. Ancient treasures, advanced technology, A note from Qin Shi Huang saying, "Nice try, archaeologists of the future. Let's speculate wildly together." Thanks for watching, and remember, some doors are worth waiting to open.